There's something happening inside the airline industry that almost nobody outside aviation is fully paying attention to. For years, airlines competed using the same basic formula: more routes, more airplanes, more passengers, bigger hubs, bigger networks. But somewhere along the way, Delta Airlines started playing a completely different game. And now, in 2026, the results are becoming impossible to ignore. Because while many airlines are still fighting for market share, Delta is quietly building something far more dangerous, a business model that competitors are struggling to replicate. This is no longer just another major American airline competing on ticket prices and route maps. Delta has transformed itself into something closer to a premium global brand, with one of the most financially disciplined operations in aviation. And the scariest part for competitors like United and American Airlines is that the gap may actually be growing, because Delta's advantage isn't built around one thing. It's built around dozens of interconnected systems working together at the same time. Fleet strategy, premium cabins, operational reliability, airport dominance, customer loyalty, corporate contracts, international partnerships, technology investments, even the psychology of how passengers perceive the airline. Delta has spent more than a decade quietly engineering an ecosystem that is becoming increasingly difficult for competitors to attack directly. And to understand how Delta became so difficult to compete with, you have to go back to one of the most important moments in modern airline history: the 2008 merger between Delta and Northwest Airlines. At the time, the merger looked like a traditional consolidation move: bigger airline, bigger network, more aircraft. But what most people didn't realize was that Delta's leadership was using the merger to completely redesign the airline from the inside out. Overnight, Delta inherited an enormous international network, valuable Pacific routes, additional hubs, and one of the largest fleets in the industry. But instead of simply operating the combined company the way most legacy airlines would, Delta started making unusually disciplined, long-term decisions that would reshape the carrier for decades. One of the first major signals came from fleet strategy. While many airlines aggressively chased growth and rushed into large aircraft orders, Delta approached fleet planning differently. The airline became obsessed with flexibility, efficiency, and long-term profitability rather than pure expansion. Delta executives understood something fundamental about aviation. Airlines don't fail because they lack passengers. Airlines fail because they lose financial control during difficult periods: fuel spikes, recessions, economic downturns, aircraft delivery delays, operational disruptions. The industry has always been brutally cyclical. So Delta built its strategy around resilience, and that mindset changed everything. Instead of blindly ordering massive numbers of aircraft, Delta carefully balanced new aircraft purchases with older aircraft acquisitions, maintenance capabilities, and operational flexibility. The airline invested heavily into its own technical operations division, allowing it to maintain aircraft more efficiently than many competitors. Delta TechOps quietly became one of the most powerful maintenance operations in the industry, generating billions in external revenue while simultaneously lowering operational risk internally. Most passengers never think about airline maintenance infrastructure, but inside aviation, this matters enormously, because operational reliability is one of the foundations of profitability. Delays destroy schedules, cancellations destroy customer trust, maintenance inefficiencies destroy margins. Delta became obsessed with controlling those variables better than competitors. And over time, passengers noticed Delta consistently ranked near the top among major US airlines in operational performance. Fewer cancellations, better on-time performance, more consistency. That reliability became part of the brand itself. Business travelers especially began trusting Delta in ways that created enormous long-term loyalty advantages. And that loyalty became incredibly valuable because premium travelers are where the real money exists in aviation. Most economy passengers generate relatively thin margins, but premium cabins generate massive profits. Delta understood this earlier and more aggressively than many competitors. While some airlines focused heavily on maximizing seat counts, Delta focused on maximizing revenue quality. The airline invested billions into premium products, airport lounges, loyalty partnerships, and customer experience improvements designed specifically to attract high-income travelers. Delta One became a central part of the airline's identity. Premium lounges became more luxurious, airport experiences became smoother, cabin interiors became more refined, Even seemingly small details like boarding processes, app functionality, and baggage handling became part of a larger premium strategy. Delta wasn't trying to be the cheapest airline in America. It was trying to become the airline high-value customers trusted most. And that distinction completely changed the economics of the business. Because once an airline builds strong loyalty among premium travelers, the financial effects compound dramatically over time. Corporate contracts become easier to secure. Credit card partnerships become more valuable. Business travelers become repeat customers. High-spending passengers remain loyal even during economic uncertainty. Delta built one of the most powerful loyalty ecosystems in the world through its partnership with American Express, and the scale of that relationship became staggering. Billions of dollars annually started flowing into Delta simply from loyalty and co-branded credit card economics. At a certain point, Delta was no longer just an airline transporting passengers. It was becoming a financial ecosystem built around premium travel behavior, and competitors began struggling to keep up. American Airlines, in particular, found itself increasingly squeezed. The airline carried enormous debt from years of aggressive expansion and fleet spending, while simultaneously struggling with operational consistency and product differentiation. United Airlines invested heavily into international expansion and premium upgrades, but Delta maintained an advantage in customer perception among many high-income travelers. And customer perception matters far more in aviation than many people realize. Because airlines are fundamentally trust businesses. Passengers are not just buying transportation, they are buying reliability, comfort, predictability, and status. Delta spent years carefully shaping its reputation around those ideas. The airline marketed itself as calm, premium, and operationally disciplined. Even during industry chaos, Delta tried to appear stable and controlled. That branding strategy created enormous psychological value. But perhaps Delta's most powerful advantage came from something even bigger: airport dominance. Delta controls some of the most strategically valuable hubs in America. Atlanta alone is one of the most important aviation assets in the world. The airport functions almost like a fortress hub for Delta, generating extraordinary scale advantages: massive passenger feed, huge operational efficiency, enormous route connectivity, dominance over competitors. And Delta replicated versions of that strategy across multiple hubs, including Detroit, Minneapolis, Salt Lake City, and increasingly, New York. The New York strategy is especially important because New York represents one of the most valuable premium travel markets on Earth. Delta invested aggressively into LaGuardia and JFK, spending billions modernizing terminals and upgrading passenger experience. The airline understood that controlling premium traffic in New York would strengthen its position globally, and over time, the strategy worked. Delta became increasingly competitive in markets historically dominated by American Airlines and United. Internationally, Delta also made unusually disciplined decisions. Instead of simply chasing maximum route expansion, the airline focused heavily on strategic partnerships and joint ventures. Air France-KLM, Virgin Atlantic, Korean Air and Aeromexico. These partnerships allowed Delta to expand global connectivity without carrying all the financial risk directly on its own balance sheet. The airline became extremely sophisticated at leveraging alliances while maintaining operational discipline internally. At the same time, Delta made one of the most controversial strategic shifts in the industry: its growing preference for Airbus aircraft. Over the last decade, Delta systematically expanded one of the most Airbus-heavy fleets among major global carriers: A350s, A330neo, A321neo. The strategy gave Delta operational consistency and fuel efficiency advantages, while competitors dealt with Boeing production problems and certification delays. And timing mattered enormously, because Boeing entered one of the most difficult periods in its modern history: the 737 MAX crisis, 777X delays, production slowdowns, quality concerns, and delivery disruptions created uncertainty throughout the industry. Delta's relative insulation from many of those issues gave the airline stability at exactly the right moment. While competitors waited for delayed aircraft deliveries, Delta continued executing long-term fleet plans with remarkable consistency, and the financial benefits became increasingly visible. Delta generated some of the strongest margins among major U.S. airlines while maintaining premium pricing power.